Hello everyone! In this video, I'll be giving some tips to help improve your color palettes. But first, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, Clip Studio Paint. If you don't know what Clip Studio Paint is, it's the drawing software I'm always using in my videos. Clip Studio Paint is designed for creators who love to draw and paint. With a natural brush feel beyond other graphic softwares, you can enjoy creating your vision just how you want it. Thousands of new materials are added every month on Clip Studio Paint assets. Things like 3D models, brushes, patterns, textures, all kinds of things. You'll always find something to match your personal style. You can also customize every aspect of your brushes, giving you a limitless supply of tools. I have been using Clip Studio Paint for years and it has always been my #1 drawing software. I use it for illustrations, my webcomic, logos, pretty much everything. If you want to try Clip Studio Paint for yourself, they have a 3-month trial on clipstudiopaint.net. There's a link in the description. So in this video, I'm going to talk about picking colors and how to create color palettes. Also, I'll be showing some cool features within Clip Studio. Oh, also, my screen recorder doesn't like to record windows that pop up, so I'll try my best to edit them in with my editing software. Deciding on a color palette for illustrations can be really tricky. You can spend a lot of time creating one, or you can let other people do the work for you and download a color palette from Clip Studio Paint assets. If you search for color sets, you can find all kinds of color sets created by other artists. Some of the color sets I really like are the Marine Pretty and Bubble Shower color sets by Yuki Yume Kodomo. This Thermal Hues color set is also really cool. It's by Jessica T. Zen. You can install these color sets by going to the Material window or tab, then select the color set you want to install, then click this button to register the material. If we go down here to the color wheel and click on the Color Sets tab, we can see our new color set. You can even make your own color sets by clicking on the Settings button and clicking Add New Settings. You give the set a name, and now you can add any colors you want to this set. You can decide which set you want to use by clicking this. To add a color, just right-click a square and click Add Color. So now let's talk about choosing colors to create our own color palettes. Here I have my complementary color wheel. The color wheel in Clip Studio Paint is an RGB color wheel, so the complementary colors aren't opposite of each other. Because of this, I made my own RYB color wheel. This kind of color wheel is helpful for mixing and picking colors. If you like to use it for yourself, I'll put a link to where you can download it in the description. So first, let's start with a very simple color palette, the complementary color palette. Complementary colors are colors that are opposite to each other on the color wheel. I'm going to draw a line across the color wheel. The colors I get are blue and orange. Let's try applying them to my picture. So this is my picture. It's something simple that I drew really quick for this video. I have all the different parts of the coloring on different layers, and I have the layer set to lock transparent pixels. This makes it so that I can't color outside of the coloring on that layer. Above all of these layers, I have my shadow and highlight layers. My shadow layers are set to multiply, and I used a muted magenta for the shadow color. I used this color because it tends to mix well with all of the other colors when set to multiply. For my highlight layers, I used white, and I set them to add glow. The shading is a little dull, but I wanted shading that would easily adjust to whatever colors I use, so it was this or no shading. Anyways, let's try applying the orange and the blue to the character. So these colors are okay, but they are kind of fighting for attention. They are both very vibrant, so let's try changing the colors like the strap of her bag to brown. Now you might be thinking, whoa Becca, you just changed the colors, that won't work now. No, it's okay, they will. As long as I don't adjust the hue, the colors are still complementary. So for the strap, I changed the orange to a brown by making it darker and less saturated. I'm okay with keeping the tie and the hair clip the vibrant orange, since they don't take up much of the picture and they add kind of a fun pop of color. I make the hair a lighter version of the blue. To adjust the eye color, I'm using the Hue Saturation Luminosity Correction layer. I made the eyes gray with this correction layer by sliding the hue all the way down. So when I slide the hue up, I'm able to make it have color again, and I can also change the color by sliding the hue slider around. I decided to make them an orangey brown color. So here is our first color palette. It's pretty simple, so let's try something a little more complicated. The next color scheme is split complementary. So my color is this teal. Across from the teal is an orangey color, but instead of using that color, I use the color to the sides of that color, kind of like a letter Y. So now I have teal, orange, and red. I just noticed this color scheme is very similar to our first color scheme. Sorry about that, I should have chose different colors, but it does end up feeling pretty different. This time I adjust the red to be a bit darker. The orange is a light brown. I make the white of her shirt a very light version of the teal. Her hair is also a light version of the teal. Her hair clip is red just like the vest, and her eyes are brown. Another color scheme you can try is Analogous. An analogous color scheme is where you just use 3 colors on one side of the color wheel, kinda like this. It's a color palette that's easy to understand and often nice to look at. Okay, so now let's try one more color scheme, this time with 4 colors. Oh, we're getting fancy. So this color scheme went by many different names online. I'm going to just call it the square color scheme because we basically just draw a square on the color palette and ta-da, we have our colors. I decided to go with yellow, red, purple, and green. Oh, also, one thing that is cool that you can do in Clip Studio is if you go to the intermediate color tab, you can set these colors to the colors of your color scheme, and it'll make a gradient between all your different colors. Also, I recommend placing the colors in the same corners as when we draw our square. That way, all of the colors fade nicely. This can be really helpful if you're trying to stick with using only 4 colors. A great way to improve your color choices is to limit the amount of colors you use. When I was a beginner, I wanted to make each part of the picture a different color, and I didn't like using the same color twice. This can make the coloring feel like it's really busy. So if you find your coloring feels really busy and a little all over the place, try to limit yourself to a few colors. Anyways, back to the square color scheme. I tried applying the colors without adjusting them at all, and we get this. It's very bright and punchy, but that's not really what I'm going for. So I make the red and yellow very soft and pastel. I decided to make the green pretty dark for the bag strap and the tie. And the purple is really dark for her hair. Another thing to keep in mind when deciding color palettes is how dark or light your colors are. This is referred to as the color's value. It's good to try to have a good variety of darker and lighter colors. This helps make the coloring more interesting and often easier to understand or tell parts of the picture apart. I do sometimes see it as a stylistic choice to make all of the colors the same value, so you can do that if you want to. If you want to easily check the value of your color palette or art, go to Layer, New Correction Layer, Hue, Saturation, Luminosity. Then slide the saturation slider all the way down. And now we can see how dark or light our colors are. Before we move on to the next part of the video, let's go over one more way to create a color palette. A fun way to get an interesting color palette is to take inspiration from art or pictures. An easy way to do this is to find a picture that has colors you like. And to turn it into a color palette, I'm going to use the filter called Mosaic. To find it, you can go to Filter, Effect, Mosaic. Mosaic kind of pixelates the art, and if we slide the slider far to the right, we get these larger squares of color. Now, you don't have to use all of these colors, but you can grab some of your favorite colors to make a color scheme. Sometimes when working on art that is for commissions or fan art, we have to use certain colors. You might sometimes have to use colors that you don't like together or they don't look like they belong together. So let's go over some ways we can make colors feel more cohesive and harmonious. An easy way to help colors feel like they go together is to go to the settings of your brush, pen, or whatever you use to color. Click the settings button and then go to ink. Next, find the blend with subcolor setting. You can click on this to make it so the setting is visible in this window. So you'll want to set a color that you want to mix with all of the other colors as your subcolor. This slider decides how much of your subcolor mixes with your main color. I'm going to set this to 40. So now when I color, it'll be 40% the subcolor and 60% the main color. Now all of my colors have a hint of the subcolor in them. This can help them feel like they go together because they all have a little bit of the same color in them. Another thing you can do to make colors feel like they go together is to make a new layer above all of your other layers. Next, pick a color to apply to the entire canvas. If you want a warmer feeling, pick a warm color like red. In this case, I chose orange. If you want your picture to have a cooler feeling, then choose a cooler color like blue. Now just scroll through the different layer modes until you find one that you like. Layer modes change how the layer interacts with the other layers. I decided to go with the layer mode screen because I thought this one looked kind of cool. And then I lower the opacity to make it not as strong. I often do this in my illustrations to help the colors feel like they belong together. I also like to use the same technique with gradient maps. A gradient map is a gradient that applies colors based on how dark or light the values are. So here are the list of the different gradients. I'm going to double click the sunset gradient to apply it to my picture. I scroll through the different layer modes until I find one that I like, and then I lower the opacity. You can get a lot of really cool effects with gradient maps. You can also download new gradient maps from Clip Studio Paint assets. To help my illustrations coloring feel cohesive, I often use the color balance correction layer. You can find it by going to Layer, New Correction Layer, and then Color Balance. You can change the hue of the shadows, halftones, and highlights. So if I want all of the shadows to feel more blue, I can make them more blue. Or if I want all of the highlights to feel more red, I can also do that. It's a really simple way to make all of the colors in your picture feel more cohesive. So those are my tips on picking colors, creating color palettes, and making colors feel like they go together. I hope they're helpful to you and that you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much again to Clip Studio Paint for sponsoring this video. So that's all for now. I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!